We are live. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bunker Buddies podcast, where we'll talk about cryptids, conspiracies, mysteries, and a bunch more. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blackout, Brannon.
I'm your other co-host, JD.
And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get right into this week's episode. Actually, do you think we should talk about more of what we're about before we start getting into this week's episode?
Yeah, go for it. Let's talk about it.
All right. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about is cryptids, mysteries. Like I said, cryptids, mysteries, conspiracies. We want to start this week off with something that has kind of a resolution on it. You know, just to get us toe dipping in the water. We're going to go over the facts about it, the history, the lore, everything, and then we're going to talk about several of the possible theories and then what we personally think is the truth, and then go back and forth about it.
I think that sums it up.
All right. Well, this week is going to be the Chupacabra, something that I have experience with, if you want to call it that. You know what I'm saying? You know, we out here in the Mojave wasteland. I mean desert. So yeah. So conspiracy theory hats on. Oh, I forgot about. That's fine. And let's crack one open.
Yeah, crack one open. So this is what I'm going to introduce to the podcast. Some of you who may know me from YouTube, I do a lot of drinking and beer reviews. This one is going to be our Beer of Podcast, or BOP. So this BOP is our Arnold Palmer Spiked. This, you don't know what Arnold Palmer is, it's half iced, half lemonade, all alcohol, 5%. So as a first sip, you've never had this one before. How do you like it?
I like it. I almost feel like it feels like there's going to be a little bit more lemonade. Maybe that's because I drink so much Arnold Palmer that I know what the taste is supposed to taste like.
Oh no, this is definitely a lot of lemonade. I would prefer more iced tea to it. However, do you taste the alcohol?
Barely. And that's the thing is, you know how the lemonade usually comes in and is an aftertaste at the end of your Arnold Palmer? It almost tastes like that replaces the aftertaste of the alcohol, but barely.
Just barely. It is 5%. It is 1 pint. It is 8 fluid ounces. So it'll get you there. I definitely think.
All right.
Now that we got to our BOP, let's dive into the El Chupacabra.
All right. So before we go into the facts, let's talk about when was the first time you ever heard about the Chupacabra?
The first time I heard about the Chupacabra, I would probably be about like 7.
All right.
Is when I heard about it. What about you?
I want to say the first time I probably heard about it was there was a Scooby-Doo movie that had it in it, didn't it?
Yes,
there was.
All right. I'm so glad you brought this up.
All right, yeah. So there was a Scooby-Doo movie, and I think that was the first time oh my, is it slightly off kilter? I gotta fix that before I lose my mind.
All right, you wanna go fix that?
Technical difficulties.
But that's so crazy that you brought up Scooby-Doo, because a lot of what we're gonna talk about throughout this podcast series, I can connect to Scooby-Doo, because Scooby-Doo had so many cryptids and so many like out of the world things. I mean, I would love to talk about Roswell, and there's a Scooby-Doo movie based in Roswell, New Mexico. And guess what? They run into aliens.
Oh, aliens can be like multiple episodes.
We could break down aliens so many different ways, but yes, Scooby-Doo and cryptids and unknown, there's so much, especially because they are the Mystery Inc. And I think that dives a lot into what we want to do.
All right. So before we continue with the Chupacabra, I feel like it's also. So why do you think is? Let's talk about what's your background as far as like what's your experience in terms of content? Because I'll get into mine, but let's go with yours first.
All right. Going into my content. Currently, I'm doing a lot of YouTube of my own. JD, if you want to find me on YouTube, it's just JD. Or if you want to go to my other channel that I'm part of, it's called Faded Family Entertainment. We're all about just drinking, beer reviews, doing challenges. One of the more popular challenges that I've recently done has been the One Chip Challenge. I've done the Hot Wings Challenge. I've done the whole lineup going all the way from the classic to the bomb, all the way up to the final dab. Definitely would recommend trying at least once.
All right.
And then I've done other obscure ones, like I've done the 4x4x4 challenge.
What's the 4x4x4 challenge?
To see how fast you can eat, I believe, 3 4x4s.
What are the 4?
So, if you've ever been to In-N-Out, West Coast thing. What's up, West Coast? In-N-Out has this thing called the 4x4 where it is patty, cheese, patty, cheese, patty, cheese. It is 4 slices of cheese, 4 patties.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to eat 4 of those as fast as you can. So it's obscure challenges that I like to do. I have another podcast that I do with Faded Family. It's called Slurred Speech. Basically, we do about minimum of 6 beers a podcast.
All right.
And just kind of like catch up, see where we are, talk about like highlights, main points that have been going on.
All right. Forgive me for I'm going to try and do my
adjust yourself. You get comfortable. Hope all of you are comfortable. Let us know what you're sipping on. Let us know what you guys want to see.
Oh, yeah. And if you're not watching this live on twitch.tv/Blackout Brannon, we're going to try and do it every other Saturday at approximately 6:30. See how that goes.
Yeah. This intro is going to be a little long, but once we start diving in and once we get more episodes going, it'll be a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
But this is really just to kind of get together and to get into our first topic. So let me know, what have you been doing? What is your media experience?
All right, so mostly, as you can't tell from the whole USEC, oh wait, that's No Step on Snack, USEC, Fast MT replica. I stream a lot of video games, specifically Escape from Tarkov, any kind of like milsim sort of thing, Ready or Not, police stuff. Recently been getting a lot into the aerial stuff, but I have not put out content in a long time. It's been like so. This will be my first dip back into content, and part of my whole persona online is the tactical dude just playing video games.
Love that.
All right. So, whenever you first heard about the Chupacabra, how did it stick with you whenever you first saw it in Scooby-Doo, or was it something that popped back up later in life?
It was definitely something that stuck with me because this is so crazy, and especially when I got older, I heard different variations of what Chupacabra was.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understood growing up, I got more of the Texas Chupacabra compared to the Puerto Rico version.
Mm-hmm.
And the main difference is the Texas one, I would definitely compare it to a coyote with mane.
Yeah.
It's very dog-like, very canine-like in that aspect, where the Puerto Rico one is very reptilian.
Almost like an alien pet. Is
Almost
what I've
like
heard it described
an
as.
alien pet.
Yeah.
And we're gonna dive into that, and we're gonna compare those a little bit more. But that's really what I understood growing up. It was more canine-like.
So, there was 2 Mexican folk stories that my parents told, or my grandparents told my dad, and one of them was the can't remember her name, La Llorona. Because they lived next to a creek, and my brother and my dad and his brother would, goof off in the creek like a bunch of kids, and they would my grandma, that's the only way she can get him to come inside. And the other one was El Chupacabra. They lived in southern Arizona. It's just kind of like that was part of their culture too at that point. And whenever I saw the Chupacabra on there, my dad would tell me the stories about how he saw one in the woods, just to scare me as a kid. And that didn't really stick with me until one day I was at school. Now, our school was kind of like, what was interesting about our school is there was a very it was a small school. I'm talking we had 3 grades per classroom, and there was 30 total kids in there, despite the fact it was 3 grades. So it was pretty small, and it was literally like if you could get a bird's eye view, the road came like this. Here was the school, and behind it was mountains. And so, literally, there was desert and then mountains. And so, One day we weren't allowed to leave because there was an animal outside. It was 3:10, and they were like, "Hey, unless your parents are coming to pick you up, we can't take you to the buses right now. There's an animal outside." And so a lot of the teachers were talking about it, and they didn't want to tell us kids at the time. But they got pictures of the Chupacabra, and I'll try and find a picture online. Oh, who's that? What level PMC are you? Oh, I'm a level 12 PMC. So, I don't have access to the flea market. I still got this crappy airsoft helmet instead of the real one. That's one of my friends that I was talking to. If you want, like I said, if you want to be part of the conversation, go ahead and watch us live on twitch.tv/Blackout Brannon every other Saturday at 6:30 Mountain Standard Time.
Yeah, about.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my first. That's more for that story I remember from Scooby-Doo. came back and was like, shit, is that real? That's whenever I started thinking about it. So yeah, that was my first experience with it. All right.
So I really like that. So now that we kind of get each other's experience about what this, or at least our experience of what the Chupacabra is, I kind of really want to break down what is a Chupacabra. Well, at home, if you guys don't know, it really translates down to goat sucker. Chupa, to suck. Cabra, goats, goat sucker. This, what I think is very interesting, back in the 90s, this was actually coined by a comedian.
Oh, I remember hearing about that one. Yeah,
it was a Puerto Rican comedian who coined this term as talking about these ongoing events in Puerto Rico where farmers would find their livestock basically diminished, and all the blood would be sucked out of these goats. So the comedian went up on stage and basically coined the term Chupacabra. This upset a couple people. I'm really bad at names. I'm totally not going to be able to name the comedian, but there is a scientist who's also working on trying to coin a name for the Chupacabra, and he could not get it. And his was an acronym. I don't even remember.
I think I wrote it down.
Okay, if you can find the acronym for me. But there was a scientist who was trying to use
EBOS.
EBOS. He was trying to use the term EBOS, which was basically an acronym for like an alien, right?
What did I say it was? It was in EBOS was the.
We'll find it.
It was called Alien Biological Entity. Is what they were trying to get a Spanish acronym for it.
Yeah, so they tried to do that. It did not stick. So Chupacabra stuck. And again, I say the 90s because the first recorded event of this was back in 1995 in Puerto Rico. So I think that's really recent. And this is why I'm very on the skeptic side. I'm not a full believer. I think there's a plausibility in the Chupacabra. What do you think?
So yeah, I think it's an inexplainable sort of cryptid, if that makes sense. And we'll get into that as we talk about the possibilities. And what I thought was really cool about that is they were talking like Puerto Rico, they had this weird thing that they were getting into. This was right after the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico in the 90s. I don't remember what the name of the hurricane was. And right after that, they had a bunch of goat suckers that they their livestock was left dead. Now, people were they really dry of blood, or did they just get gutted basically and all the blood came out? There's a little bit of skepticism on that, but what is known, there was a huge surge in the amount of animals that just died by wildlife, which could be attributed to wildlife being kicked up by the hurricane and everything like that. So it's something to look at, but it was really cool that at the same time, all of these sightings about a reptile with a spiny back and kind of large eyes was very, very similar to a movie that was put out that was actually very popular in Puerto Rico at the time. That was wherever it was released in Puerto Rico. And I can't remember the name of it. It had something to do with an alien girl that I think it was called Species.
I think it was.
All right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was an interesting thing. Is so the actual, I think it was the governor of Puerto Rico, the leader of Puerto Rico. It got so bad, and he believed it so much that he got him and all of his government to try and hunt these things down. Not one was turned up. Not one.
Yeah, it was he took like a year to do this, right?
Yeah, over a course of a year, him and his entire government looked for these things. But you know how governments work. Supposedly they went and looked for it, but I have no reason to believe they didn't.
Now this varies when you come into the actual inlands of the United States.
Yes.
And we compared this to the Texas Chupacabra. In Texas, when it was first reported, I want to say back in 2003.
Yeah.
One of the first main sightings was more canine-like. It still had that spine. It was very hairless, but it had spikes on its back, very similar to the reptilian, and it was doing the same thing, sucking.
Yep. And
she said. If you listen to this on Spotify, you'll hear that. But I got this nice D-pad.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, he just hit the buttons on us.
But what I think is really interesting about this is that it varies so much from the description of Chupacabra to we also had people, not the government, but we had people go out and look for these. We found some.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it gets a little dicey. These creatures that we found very much are similar to coyotes and wolves that have bred and that have very severe mane.
Yes. And so do we want to let's go into some of the somewhere I'm going to go ahead and show the video, but there was a cop that was chasing one. And his dash cam was talking like, you know how cop dash cams are, it's not 1080p, but it's still 480p 60 frames a second. It's not bad quality. And you can clearly see that whenever I'm sure you've seen plenty of coyotes, you know, they don't have a square jaw, but they definitely don't have a pointy one.
Yeah.
And whenever you look, and that was one of the things that always got me whenever I saw the real Chupacabra whenever I was a kid, and every now and then since then, is they have a very pointy snout and rounded ears, which is strange because whenever you see a coyote, whenever you see a wolf, they have very pointed ears and a not super pointed snout, but you can see whenever he turns his head in that camera, he gives a straight profile to the dash cam, and it does not look like a coyote. And there was this one woman who she's a taxidermist, and no, she's not she's a hunter. So she's hunted everything from elephants to, or maybe not elephants. She's hunted a lot of stuff, and she gets them. They're basically stuffed as trophies.
Very high game hunting is what
she's hunted all her life. You know, she's not a wildlife expert that's certified in any way, but whenever you spend...
But she wouldn't know a difference between a coyote and a wolf.
Yeah. And the thing is, she didn't go hunting for the Chupacabra. What happened was her animals were getting sucked, and she knew there was a bobcat in the area. She killed the bobcat. Well, the same night she killed the bobcat, her animals were still dying.
Yeah.
And so she goes, oh, well, shit. And so she went out and she found this. And after she found it, what I thought was really cool was, did you hear about the DNA test?
Yes, I did. So go ahead. Explain it for everybody who's listening.
So the DNA test on this one that she eventually got was a mixture of not only a coyote but also a wolf and at least two other animals. And you could say, okay, one or two of the animals could have been, it was Mexican wolf, coyote. Was it another canine and two other animals?
I want to say it was another canine and other animal. I want to say one was close or cross to an American boar.
Okay, which I know they could say two of them could have. The reason why two of those DNA samples could have ended up on the skin or the blood was because of them eating it, because you know they do eat dead animals all the time. But the fact that so many were in its on its skin just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so the theory we'll go ahead and we'll talk about the theories now. So let's start with theories.
Into the theories.
All right. So, do we want to start with the most grounded or the most outlandish first?
So, let's start. We'll start with this one because we're on this story.
All right.
So, what is her theory? What this animal is?
So, her theory, and this is the one I most prescribe to, is that it is most likely the true Chupacabra sightings. The true Chupacabra is a mixture of almost like a mule. All right, so a mixture between two or three different kinds of animals that isn't supposed to breed, that cannot produce offsprings after it. Therefore, it does exist, but it is so diseased and mutated that not only does its pack kick it out, but it has a hard time surviving as it is, and it eventually just dies out in the middle of the wilderness, and that's the end of it. And so that's her theory. That's why that's what she thinks it is. And that is what the theory I prescribe to. It helps line up a lot of things in terms of at least the American sightings, because you could almost say that the American sightings on the main continent are completely different than the ones in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
So, and actually, like, my girlfriend has a couple of pictures and videos of one that they saw recently. And that one looks like, I wouldn't say it looks like the Chupacabra that I saw as a kid and that she taxidermied and everything.
Yes.
But there was definitely a couple of times where it was like, this could be a manged coyote. If you look at all the videos that are attributed to this kind of sighting, it could very well be a manged coyote, or it could be that hybrid animal that they were talking about. And so that's what's really hard is, like, you have several of the DNA tests whenever people hunted these things. It's like, oh no, that's just an animal with a crap ton of mange. But you also have a couple of sightings where it's like, no, this is a cross between like 3 different animals, and it shouldn't exist, but it does.
Yeah. So what I think is really interesting about this, and tag along on what you were saying, but people do say that these are coyotes or wolves with mange. The biggest red flag that I see with this is that the behavioral patterns do not match those of coyotes with mange. If you are in the Havasu area of Arizona, we have several coyotes running around with mange. Go out to our local golf course, there is a single coyote with mange who's made himself a local resident.
Yes.
And I've seen him multiple times. Actually, I haven't seen him since about probably January when
probably died.
When I was riding around. But he was out there almost every day that I went through that golf course delivery. Mm-hmm. So I know he's out there. But that's my biggest thing. Is could it be mange? And if it is, how severe is the mange that we're not aware of it? Is it affecting animals?
That was also the weird thing is, like, you've seen an animal with mange and it has still hair along its back.
Yeah. And
there is hair. And whenever they got that thing taxidermied, there wasn't a lack of hair. It was just fuzz. Yeah. Which was weird because, like, mange doesn't just, like, make this hair shorter. It stops you from being able to grow it. It stops it at the root. So these, at least the one that she captured or that she killed, and the other one that they got. It's also all over my.
All over your vest.
Oh no!
All right. Sad trombone. We're gonna get you a bib next time.
So yeah, we had. That's the. Where was I?
We're talking about mange.
Okay, so yeah, that was the problem. Is that these chupacabras didn't have. They still had hair, so mange didn't make sense. And on top of that, whenever she got that thing DNA tested, there was no disease on the skin. Sorry. So yeah, that's why it's kind of hard to distinguish what is a quote-unquote real chupacabra versus what is a manged animal.
All right, so we're gonna dive into more of these conspiracy theories. There are quite a few of them.
Are we gonna go with the CIA or the aliens?
So there's a lot that goes into this. I mean, like, people here in the U.S. call, or in the mainland call Chupacabra Bigfoot of the Southwest. Don't necessarily,
the what?
The Bigfoot of the Southwest.
Oh yeah, I've heard that one.
I don't necessarily consider that to be the thing, because I think what we should talk about first is a big popular one, especially in Puerto Rico, especially after the hurricane that hit there. Is this type of an alien? A lot of people believe that this was an alien, but is it smart enough to be an actual alien that was capable of space travel? I do not believe so. I believe that this was a pet, was brought here with an alien, like an alien brought to Earth, left behind. Because how many times have you seen people from out of state come to Lake Havasu, leave their dog on vacation? It happens way too much. It's very sad. Go adopt a dog because our pounds are full.
Yeah, but not if you're traveling. Adopt a dog when you stay at home for like a year with it. All right.
Exactly. Don't travel. Don't travel if you're not going to bring a dog.
Yeah.
To and fro.
All right. So before we continue with this, is this the theory you personally prescribe to?
No.
Okay.
I actually prescribe to the one that you talked about. I do think this comes back to the coyote wolf, bat hybrid kind of thing. But I have a little bit more that I also. This is where I split.
All right.
I subscribe to that, but I also split it with this next theory, which I think is the most interesting one, because I think the more we move on and more information is released due to confidentiality.
All right.
Because we learned a lot about certain things.
I have a list of things they did, so go ahead and continue.
But as we move on as a country, the government releases more. Some being back in the day.
All right, so let's go over the list of crimes that CIA committed in Puerto Rico. So, first, they did experiments on the locals in Puerto Rico. The first one, they tested dangerous contraceptives that they could not test on animals in the U.S., and they tested it on the local women of Puerto Rico. And then they want the forest of Vietnam. It's very similar to the forests in Puerto Rico. Sorry, jungles, not forests. So they went and then tasted Agent Orange there to see how well it deforested everything. Yeah, that's great. So the theory, if you want to continue now that I've got my list of CIA crimes out of the way, that's... Before we continue, the thing you should know is I have a soft spot for government-based conspiracy theories. A huge soft spot for those. So, whenever you see those come up, just know that I was the one that picked it.
But with this one, what I think is very interesting is the belief is that this was something released by the CIA, by the U.S. government, for population control.
Oh, really?
Not only population control, and this is where it splits, because I feel it's all part of the same conspiracy. But this was a weapon for war.
That's what I heard. That
was then turned into population control. Because as much as people want to argue, most of war and most things come down to population. Many people, it outweighs the government of whatever wants to. So, I think it was a weapon of war originally, and then they were like, "Hey, you know what we could do? Control population, and you control the population by the lives."
Okay.
And which is why people believe the reason that this also kind of fits into this, because they don't want to kill the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what they want to do.
They just want to make it harder for people to live. If
rely more on the government,
and if they start to rely, if their food source runs out, and there's only so much food to go around, people are either going to kill each other for food. There's going to be all sorts of ramifications that lead to less people. I understand that. All right.
So that's really where it comes from, and I think this theory is really interesting, and I think it's plausible. I don't want to rule it out.
All right.
There is a lot. There's also I've made connections. CIA releasing this as a war to. Now let me connect this.
I'm listening.
Let me connect this for you. Between the hurricane and between testing the CIA's done in Puerto Rico, there are military bases, UFO sighting in the general area of Puerto Rico, which I think is really interesting. Are those aliens? Possibly. Could it possibly be U.S. government doing things that they announced that they were doing? Possibly.
More than likely. I think a lot of the earliest UFO sightings were actually the U.S. testing planes. Isn't that correct?
Yes. And the reason being is we are actually the only government in the world that launches our airplanes at night. Our Navy, we launch off of Navy ships in pitch black. We can launch and land on our Navy ship.
No other country does that.
Nope.
So I'm kind of a plane and military nerd. So I'm going to be the first one to tell you that whenever I'm playing DCS, which is Digital Combat Simulator, whenever you're flying the F-18, it gives you little indicators on the HUD, and it gives you speed control, so you can literally just follow the points on the HUD. Even if the aircraft carrier was pitch black, you would theoretically be able to land on it. So now I thought that other countries also had that kind of capability.
No, and the reason is there's so many actual variables when you get behind the plane. But I was watching this documentary about this. The U.S. has pinpointed it.
Yeah.
So it's almost 90. I want to say it's 97% possibility of you landing on this tarmac.
Okay.
In pitch black.
One plane in the last 3 years, as far as I'm aware, of the U.S. military has fallen in the ocean when attempting to land on the carrier. And that was during daytime because of equipment failure.
Exactly.
And that made headline news.
Yeah.
So, that supports a 99% chance that you're going to land on it.
But the fact that, again, and this supports the theory that the U.S. government can do basically anything they put their mind to it.
Mm-hmm.
So is it possible that the government not only made the weapon of war, but made the people think that are aliens?
That wouldn't surprise me. We'll get into it later, but there's all kinds of things that even the government has fessed up to or been convicted of just like blatantly like, oh no, this is awful. You shouldn't have done that. And this guy's like, okay.
And I mean, that connects to so many other concerns that we'll get along this series.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a blast. So the other one that I to get into being a weapon of war, this was the theory that I read was that it was made to resemble the Japanese Aswa, I think is what it was pronounced as. So the reason why it was created this way is Japanese had a legend in a lot of their forests of a vampire. And so there was several cases where the Americans would intentionally leave bodies that were originally killed and slit their like Achilles heel and just let all the blood drain out and leave them hung there. And make it look like a vampire basically killed them. Let all the blood drain out of them.
That is crazy.
And so the theory is that the Americans wanted to kick that up a notch. And they wanted to release an actual animal that could do that. And theoretically... No, like I said, I'm saying theoretically a lot, but theoretically you make an animal that just decides to only eat blood because the protein in the blood is enough, or maybe there's diseases that make you ignore your own self-preservation. So what's to say they couldn't just make it feed on blood? Mm-hmm. But of course, that's getting into like I don't even know how that would be possible. But that's the theory: is that the CIA made this thing so that it could scare the hell out of the Japanese and give them actual proof of like, holy shit, this thing is draining our soldiers of their blood. What the fuck? And scare them into just shake the morale of the Japanese force.
Man, historically, we have not been kind to the Japanese.
Bro. You know what's the worst part? The kindness we've been to the Japanese was after we nuked their mainland twice.
Man. And then we're like, let's send a Chupacabra. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But I mean, that's crazy that these are the theories that have come out about this. And there's so many. There's two variations of this animal. I think, because it's so new, I think it might be a cross hybrid that could have been modified in a lab, possibly by the U.S. government.
See, that's
released out into the population.
That's a very possible one. That's where I was like, is it why? But the thing that I got stuck on was why in the Southwest would they release one or two just at random? Like you could say it's the same thing with like they let hunters take out 3 elk a year in this area of the country. Mm-hmm. You could say it's the same thing as like they've ran the numbers and they decided that this is how many animals need to die in order to keep the population in check. But my other thing is like, why would they do it? Like, it almost seems random. It almost seems like it doesn't make sense when they do it. So it seems more like that's an accidental thing, like a mule being made on accident because it's just wild animals being wild animals.
It's really interesting. Like, why would it be this? Why would it be Puerto Rico? I think Puerto Rico makes more sense because they do a lot of testing. They do not have the same privilege States has.
The CIA can't do anything on the U.S., but they will do it over abroad.
In a territory.
Yes, in a territory. That was the thing. It's like technically nobody can stop them because it's a U.S. territory, but technically, because it's a U.S. territory, they're allowed to do whatever they want. So
yeah, because 50 states is a nice round number. We want to make it awkward and make it 51.
No, that'd be too nice.
We already have a flag for too long. We can't add stars.
Change is dangerous. Come on.
But that makes sense. Now, for why it was in Texas. This is where we can break this on. I think we're kind of on the same page. Where we kind of lie on the plausibility of this. Have you heard? Same. there was a truck driving monkeys that were carrying a certain disease that ended up tipping over and the monkey got loose. When the driver was questioned about why he wasn't more careful, he was told he was traveling with cats.
No, I didn't hear that.
And he was unaware of the cargo he had. So that is a theory that I have, is why it was transported from possibly the West Coast, going east, getting closer to Puerto Rico. Somewhere in that, they lose a shipment.
Okay.
Or the animal gets out. Or they have something in, like, say, New Mexico. A lot of interesting things happen. We'll get into New Mexico and Roswell and Los Alamos. A lot of things in New Mexico that happens. If there is a lab in New Mexico that was making these creatures, possible to Texas.
It's not that far of a drive.
It's not that far. I mean, day drive, it barely makes the other side of Texas. But if you want to get to West Texas, you could.
And theoretically, if a population tried to recreate, which they usually do, that is usually their sole purpose. Generationally, they can make it to one side of the country to the other. So,
and if we're doing weird science that use in Jurassic Park, they made the mistake in the first movie that these animals ain't produced.
Yeah, and life finds a way, but also they're coyotes. They're at least from all the DNA evidence. They're based coyotes. Okay, they're at least mixed with coyotes. Those fuckers live anywhere. They do not. They will live in cold. They will live in heat. Like they.
If there is food, they are there.
Yep.
So I think that is definitely plausible. I think that's kind of where we're landing on this. Is that it's plausible, but how plausible?
Yeah.
I think there's an answer to this. I don't think there is a cryptid. I would not consider it a cryptid, which is where people online have argued, is this an actual cryptid?
Or is this just sightings of a mule, for instance, or a rare animal?
Yeah. I definitely say this is more rare. I do think it's interesting, and it should deserve more too, but I do not think it is something of the unnatural.
All right. I can see that. Yeah, that's definitely where I'm going. It could be lab-based, in my opinion. And it's more likely to be lab-based than alien-based, but most likely thing, in my opinion, is a natural fluke. Yes. Something that just happens from time to time. And I'll go ahead and show pictures, if I can find them, of the Chupacabra that they had at my school that kept us locked in, but I'll also show the pictures of the Chupacabra, quote-unquote, that my girlfriend said that looks more like a mange coyote than the Chupacabra. But, I didn't kill it, so I can tell you for sure.
I agree. Like, this is something that I think is very interesting. I'm really glad this was our first one, because Chupacabra is so new. And I say new because 95.
Dude, Bigfoot sightings have been... Okay, so it's up there as one of the top, 4 cryptids, let's say, with the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, what's another one?
Chupacabra,
Mothman. So it's up there as one of the top 5 or so. And it wasn't... The first sightings weren't until 90s. And the first mention...
mid-90s.
Yeah, and the first mention of it was in, a 80s movie, and it wasn't even in reference to the Chupacabra sightings we were talking about. It was
a goat sucker.
Yeah, they just used it as a goat sucker.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I do agree that it's up there, but I think as more people get conspiracy, this is going to start mining in pop for the reason so many American native cryptids that are building popularity. Because we're in Navajo area, and I have quite a few, I hear more and more of these native stories and folklore warnings, I should say.
Yeah,
which I think is crazy.
One thing I do want to say is I personally do not want to talk much about native lore on this channel if I can help it, just because whenever I went over to my friends, I went to See, I almost said what the ceremony was right there. And I'm not supposed to be talking about what the ceremony actually was or anything like that. He didn't want to tell me anything until he knew what he was allowed to tell me. And even then, whenever he's like, I'm afraid I'm going to slip up, so I'm just going to let my grandma and grandpa tell you. And so I went to the trying to think of
the ceremony.
The ceremony. I went to the area where we had the ceremony. It was up in northern Arizona. And I was told a bunch of stuff, and I'm afraid I am going to be stupid, and I'm going to slip up and say something I shouldn't have. So I would personally like to stay away from skinwalkers and whatnot.
I feel we will start talking about that if we can find a guest who will be able to inform us.
Or say, hey, shut up. And you know what? Like I said, I have a friend who's told me a lot about this stuff that he only told me under the guidance of someone else. So if I can get him on the show, that'd be a perfect guest to say, shut up, don't say anymore.
Yeah, because you have things, skinwalkers, the Fresno Nightwalkers, get into the red-headed giants of North America, which were believed by the native.
I haven't heard that story, actually.
That one's really interesting.
So that's a good one.
That we can get into. But
who is joining us? What did he say? He said Loch Ness. I don't know who. Oh, is that Nacho? It's Nacho Libre. Sorry.
What's up?
So yeah, that's one of the things is I would love to get into that, and that's the thing that, like, if we had Jason here, my boy Jay Integer, he has a great YouTube channel. He just uploaded a video. It was like 2.5 hours of just me and my friends before it was like a memorial of all the footage he had saved up of my one friend that recently passed away. And so it's a great video. Go check it out. It's great. I love it. I haven't finished watching it. I just had to stop for a second, if you understand. I
understand.
Oh, okay, so
shout out to your boy.
Shout out to my boy, because I would love to have him on the show, because I'd be able to talk about stuff like that. And there's just all kinds of stuff that'd be about. So we've got the Native American stories, and that was one of the things that I remember what I was going to say when we first started going into it, but you start talking about more about Native American legends. One of the things is, I thought you said this was going to be like declining in popularity, but I also think the same reason it's declining in popularity is going to be the same reason why it's going to be people's great first step into conspiracies and mysteries.
I agree.
Because that's the whole reason why we chose this, because not only is it's mysterious, there's weird sightings, there's multiple sources, there's conflicting data, there's lots of different possibilities, but there's also a much more concrete theory and possibility in the end, which is why I think it's a great one for not only us to start on this channel, but also a great one for people to start researching their own conspiracies. That's, in my opinion, the best first conspiracy for anyone to get into.
I agree. And again, we're talking about not only cryptids, but we're talking mysteries in general. It could be murder mystery. One that I would love first 10 is John Bennett Ramsey. And this is more of just a peek into this. There has been new information released.
Remind me, John Bennett Ramsey.
It was a child beauty pageant.
Okay, I literally just watched a video on this. I kid you not, like 2 days ago.
I think I sent you an article headline out.
I didn't even get to watch that. So on my YouTube playlist of Watch Later that I listen to every day while I'm at work, I keep the Chupacabra videos on there until we did this. I'll probably delete them after we're done. But I also have a bunch of I think it's called The Dark Criminalist or something like that.
Yeah.
This guy that we're gonna have to go into that one because it's still a cold case on that. And before you bring up the new evidence, I think we should save that for its own video because I've got some opinions about that one.
There's a lot going on with that. I would also love to talk about the Loch Ness monster.
That one's a good one.
Soon, because there's also more information coming out about the Loch Ness monster and new photos being released. So I think that's very interesting in the world. But please comment, let us know. This will probably go up on YouTube, Spotify. Please comment, let us know what you talk about. We'll probably have our next topic picked out before we record our next episode in 2 weeks. Because we're going to take about a week to, I would say, educate ourselves about this topic a little bit more. Because we're interested in a couple podcasts about each topic, but we want to get in depth and talk about some highlighted points and stuff. And obviously, as we go along, this will be a little bit more organized. But I think this is a great first start. I love the Chupacabra. I love the fact that we're kind of on the same page about this. And we're ending it.
I know on that next one, we're both going to be divided. On the, what was her name? The young girl, the young beauty pageant girl.
Oh, John Bennett Ramsey?
I found out it was actually pronounced Jean Benet, like it's French.
Oh, it probably is.
I found out one of us listening to that video, but Jean Benet Ramsey, yeah. I have a feeling we're going to be divided on that one. So, right before that one, I would love to do the assassination of Martin Luther.
I would love to get into this.
all right. So we'll go ahead and we'll put like a top 5, and then you guys let us know in the comments or message us.
Let's do a poll on Instagram.
Okay.
We have an Instagram. It's at the Bunker Buddies podcast on Instagram. We'll be posting stuff. I'll probably post reels up on there about our previous podcast episodes. But I'm super excited. I'll post a poll. We'll post a poll on there. Comment on YouTube. We'll take the information from both.
And so what we can do 4 on a poll, correct?
I think 4.
So let's go Martin Luther King, John Benet, Loch Ness, and then what's the 4th one?
Ooh, we have. I literally have a list in front of me. It's probably like 50 long. So because we're doing Loch Ness is a cryptid.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther King is a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
John Benet
is a mystery.
Murder/mystery. What would be another one that would kind of fit into this? That would be kind of in our realm. Should we do? Ooh, I'm like, there's so much.
There's so many here.
There's so much to do on this.
Okay, so we can also. I think we could also do what used to be conspiracies, but is actually now known as fact. Like, for instance, MK Ultra.
I think MK Ultra is a great one.
Because now we have 4 things. We have the cryptids, we have the mysteries, we have the conspiracy, and we have the fact. The weird facts.
Yeah.
There we go.
That I love that. Thank you for bringing that one up. It's on here, but I love that. So this gives us a broad range of what you guys want to hear now. This is great. And shout out to Jordan who let us use her place.
Our supervisor's letting us do it in her place because I've got. I'm glad I didn't do it over my place because I told you I didn't want to disturb my roommate.
Yeah.
Well, my roommate's got. I pulled in today and there's like 3 cars in the driveway that did not belong to my roommates. I'm like, oh shit, I'm just gonna grab my shit and get out. Yeah. So I'm glad we did it over here. I feel like that's a good one.
What's up? I can't see.
Man, I can't see.
Bring the computer over here. Set it on the desk.
Oh, hey, it's my girlfriend talking. Shit. Whoa. Yo, that doesn't even get in the way. Why didn't we have it here this whole time? Oh my god, that would have been so much better.
Oh, this would have definitely been better.
El Cucuy. I've got a funny story about El Cucuy. So the monster. That's what the literal translation of El Cucuy is. Is there any more hot sauce left over? Oh yeah, there is.
This hot sauce, by the way, 10 out of 10.
Oh, brought to you by my father.
Oh, talking about food and drinks that we're having. I finished my beer. How did you like it?
It was good. I've had a hard time since I turned 21 drinking hard alcohol. I think it's almost like a PTSD thing in my mouth because I threw up for the first time on my 21st birthday over alcohol.
I love that.
I don't remember much about the ride home. But I do remember we pulled into Filiberto's parking lot, or Filiberto's. We went through the drive-thru, and I was like, oh, I'm going to throw up. I'm going to open up the door so I throw up outside. And she goes, no, there's a garbage can over there. So I walk halfway across the parking lot, and I'm just vomiting, and I look over, and she goes, yeah, my victory vomit!
It's all about the vomit and rally.
And then I went back in the car. I held myself together till I got home, barely remembering the drive. And then I lay down in my driveway, and I threw up. And my sister was like, are you all right? And she was just standing there watching me make sure I was all right. I'm like, I'm good.
I totally understand that. It happens to the best of us.
Yep. So, Might be solved in the near future. Loch Ness and talking about Benet, talking about her murder might be solved in the near future. Sorry to my loving girlfriend, who I like my favorite person in the world, by the way. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to be talking about El Cucuy eventually.
Oh,
and
it's on the list.
It is on the list. And what was one of the funny thing is my dad's old electrician apprentice. Okay, my dad's a journeyman electrician. My dad is many, many things, but he is a journeyman electrician at the moment. And his apprentice is Hispanic. And so she tells a lot of the Hispanic, folk stories like Chupacabra, El Cucuy to her kids.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, she would always say that Tom is secretly El Cucuy. My dad was secretly El Cucuy. And so anytime they'd be like, you want to see El Cucuy? And eventually got to the point where my dad was like, ah, and everything. And so they stopped being afraid of El Cucuy stories because of that. So yeah, that's an interesting little.
I love that.
I love these stories that we can actually connect to like us because white people don't have culture. I'm just gonna say the southern United States kind of has a culture, even if it isn't necessarily a racial culture. It's kind of just an area of stories and what we get used to. So
I think this is a great podcast as well. We're coming up on our mark. We're at about 52 minutes right now.
Oh shit, yeah.
So I think this is great. This is not only this episode about Chupacabra, but this is also just an intro video. I really hope that you guys enjoy what we're talking about and what we're doing. We got a couple of subscribers since we started Instagram account.
Nice.
So I really like that. My dad, who doesn't follow me on my Instagram account, has followed our podcast Instagram account.
Nice.
So he'll see some of this. So I'm kind of excited about that. A big one that I think we kind of like hit a couple times in this conversation, but aliens. I would love to talk about aliens. Again, we have everything from like the Denver International Airport, the CIA.
Oh, the Denver Airport. Oh shit,
that's another big one. I talk to people from. I've been on a couple live streams. I talk to people from Louisiana. I have a couple there
about the swamps and whatnot.
Yeah, the swamps, black magic, to witching hour. There's so much. Cajun wolf dog. There's so much that we can get into. I think we have plenty of stuff to move forward, and I really want people to let us know what they want to hear.
Yeah, and also, like Camilla00, because you are the number one chatter in our stream today, you get to be a guest in one of our upcoming episodes.
Hey, is that how we're gonna start picking guests? I actually think that.
No, that's just me. This is my girlfriend.
I'm totally down for that.
All right, yeah.
I've met your girlfriend a couple times. She's very sweet.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so anything else you want to say before we sign off? Don't forget to check out our Instagram, check out our polls. My socials are Blackout Brannon on Instagram, Raisin Brannon on Twitter. I'm so sorry. And Blackout Brannon on YouTube and Twitch, which is where we are right now. So go ahead, and if you're watching this in or you're listening to it on Spotify, you want to see the video so you can see all the pictures that we're talking about and any other reference images. My girlfriend's talking about how much she has to talk about with all this stuff.
Oh yeah, we're definitely having guests. We have coworkers.
Oh, and
I have people from Texas that want to join.
My girlfriend's mom, she is from Puerto Rico, and my girlfriend's dad is from El Salvador. Or I have that backwards. My girlfriend's dad is from El Salvador. My girlfriend's mom is from Puerto Rico. I just said it.
Girlfriend, is this correct? Please comment. Let us.
My girlfriend's dad is from Puerto Rico. My girlfriend's mom is from El Salvador. There we go. Sorry.
Does he even know your name?
No. I constantly refer to her as baby or my girlfriend. Exclusively.
I forget that I have...
You have a soundboard over here?
I have a soundboard that I haven't even used all of them for.
All right. Back to the outro. Anyways, if you're listening to this on Spotify and you want to see all the visuals, you want to see everything, go ahead and check us out live at twitch.tv/blackoutbrand so you can actually see our reactions. You can see us talking, become a part of the conversation. See, I told you, mom El Salvador, dad Puerto Rican.
Okay.
Whenever I eventually got to
the fifth time. Okay.
All right, and then YouTube, Blackout Brannon. I'm going to do a little bit of editing. I'll be zooming in on faces. I'll be making funny noises. I'll try and replicate your soundboard. So
hopefully you'll hear it. I really hope that you hear it through the stream.
Oh, actually, you want to go ahead and hit that for me?
Yeah, let me know if you guys hear it on the stream.
No, they don't.
Lame. we'll find a way to make it, because I know that when I stream,
and you downloaded that those sounds, right?
Well, these are pre-programmed onto the actual podcast recorder.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so you can understand.
They're pretty generic ones, so I can go ahead and
you can hear
search
the sounds. Yeah, but again, you're gonna find all this on Blackout Brandon's account. You're gonna find this on our Instagram account, which is gonna be at the Bunker Buddies podcast. It's gonna have all that. If you want to find me, it's JD_Griffin or JD__Griffin, depending on what platform you're finding. Because sometimes platforms don't like 1_. Let me do 2.
Why?
But so I can't remember which underscore goes where. I think my Instagram is JD_Griffin. Get on there. I think YouTube is JD_Griffin. I think Twitter is the one. Didn't like my score, and it was JD__Griffin. So let me know. You'll find me. Yeah. My stuff is a little different than this. This is something that I'm very interested in. But I can't wait to see everything, and I really hope that you guys like it.
And I think this went really well.
I did too. All right, first one down. Bunker Buddies.
Bunker Buddies.